On camera, do you?
You got your shirt on already, for real.
Hey! Miss Perry.
Ready, Larry?
Yep.
All right,
I've been on.
one second.
It's the light above me. Okay, I get it.
You need some more light?
No, I need this light to go off.
Okay.
You get a chair, I could go up there and take it loose. You get a chair, I could take it loose.
Oh, right.
Take one of the bulbs
All right, let's
loose.
go to
We're
three,
good. We're good.
2.
Welcome to the Headline Eye on this May 12th, 2021. I am your host, Larry H. Gardner, and the H stands for ha-ha. I'm here, and my guest is here, and my co-host is also here, the proud owner of Simply Stunning Media, the queen of Simply Stunning Media, all your social media stuff, Miss Lizala Peary. How you doing?
Hey, I am great, Larry. How are you?
I'm fine. I enjoyed my Mother's Day with my mama.
Oh, that's awesome.
And shout out to my son for being on the flag football team, even though they came a little bit short. But, you know, if you want to see some good flag football, go to Alfwaite Park on 50th in Alfwaite down there and support these lovely people and these children. Just support the children.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I am going to give a little shout out to our Muslim listeners. Eid Mubarak. May we continue to improve our good habits throughout the year, inshallah. We need it.
That's what's up. Anything else you got to say?
You know, I am going to give a little congratulations to Carole King for finally getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Same with Tina Turner.
Shout out to Tina Turner.
Finally getting inducted. Jay-Z, the Foo Fighters, the Go-Go's, and Todd
Simply the
Rundgren
best?
are the
Yes.
It's simply the
Yes,
best.
simply the best, Tina
Yes.
Turner.
And
Yes.
so induction is October 30th.
Right, so that's what's up. Shout out to Tina for finally getting in.
Yes.
All these times. Carole King, Tina Turner should have been in. Been in.
And you know, it kind of feels like this is a diversity play because we got 3 women, 1 black woman, we got a black man, and we got the Go-Go's. So it's
Right, yeah.
They covered everybody and Todd Rundgren. So we got everybody covered in terms of
Hello,
the major
it's
players.
me.
Right.
Hello, it's me.
Hello,
Yes,
it's me.
yes.
Speaking of me, our guest is here. So the Human T-Rex is on the 1s and 2s right about now.
My
So
super producer.
Super producer, please bring in the guest. So, this beat is dedicated to one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. He is running for the open seat of Congressional District 11. Yes, there's been a lot of them going on right about now. So I'm bringing in the other candidate. He's been a state senator. He's been everywhere around the state of Ohio, the city of Cleveland. Please welcome none other than John Barnes. Mr. Barnes, how are you doing?
Vote for Barnes.
Vote for Barnes. Just pull up
Hey,
that.
Larry.
How
Hi,
you
Miss Perry. How are you?
Can we lower the mask so that our listeners can
Yeah, just
hear
lower
you?
it just a little bit. It's
We
been,
need them
it's
to
been.
know what
We've
you're
all both
saying.
been vaccinated.
We're all fully protected.
I'm practicing social distancing, so
Thank you. Appreciate it.
it's really great to be here, and you know, hearing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think is really great, given the fact that I did serve as a volunteer on the original committee that worked to bring it here.
Okay.
So we're really happy about that, and that's an example of really what makes Northeast Ohio great, and
Right, exactly.
a lot of things that we want to do.
Right, exactly. 216-249-6658 is the number to call in. It's www.wnrv1081.com. Nerve DJs Network. We get on your nerves, and I know I get on everybody's nerve. I don't care. T-Rex, we got a caller.
No, they hung up.
They hung up. So if you want to call back in, please do so. That's, All right, so John, you've been a state senator. You've been everywhere. Why run for this seat? Why running for the congressional seat, District 11?
Well, you just said why, Larry, because I'm qualified, experienced, and I have a proven track record of getting things done. And, you know, I think that it's extremely important that this new era of leadership can really walk in the gate and get going right away. It's really important to do that. And more importantly, I think that we need people who can bring folks together, to work together, to build together, stand, because these are some very turbulent times that we're living in. And so I think that that experience of not just having experience, but the experience of getting things done is extremely important. So that's why, principally, I'm running, and I think that I would like to see, us develop in this new economy in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're still in the midst of, that we really need to have a comprehensive plan that is going to take Cleveland from where it is and where it needs to go. We have some challenges. I hate saying this, but we are the most impoverished city in America, and I think that we don't want to dwell on that. That's where we are, and that's a fact. And we have to recognize facts, and we have to stop pretending something is happening that is not, and move along. And I think the vast expanse of the federal government can play and contribute significantly to getting us out of that hole.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with that being said, so let's be honest. It's a crowded race. Why should we vote for John Barnes?
You should vote for John Barnes because I'm the best situated to walk in and get it done. There's just no question about it. Right now, what you're seeing is a lot of tit for tat among candidates, talking about this, that, or the other. It really doesn't mean anything. What is important right now at this period of time is to look at the issues that have to do with an understanding of what to do. Integrity is very, very important. Honesty is very, very important. We've had a lot of situations in Northeast Ohio that have created a situation where a lot of people have simply been discouraged. We have to give people a reason to believe that they have a stake in the future and a better tomorrow from people who are going to lead our town in a way that's going to dig us out of the hole. Most people, when they hole, they say, stop digging. Not these folks. They're going to get a steam shovel because they want to dig us in longer because they don't sit down and do their homework and work to get things done in a way that is going to change the lives of people in Northeast Ohio.
So tell me how you're going to change lives in the people of Northeast Ohio when you get to Congress.
Well, first of all, what I plan on doing is to develop a team for comprehensive intervention based on the bully pulpit of the office, and to act as a convener of all the wealth. Cleveland is not a poor town, although it is the poorest town. And so we need to engage with people who are looking to grow their businesses. We need to have a relationship with the business community. Why? Because they create jobs. Why? Because they have access to the world. Why? Because they are as much a part of this community as everybody who's in the community. The only problem that we have is that we have pretended that there is progress that is not there. And it's extremely important. Everybody you talk to out there that I have are complaining about where we are at this point in time. And so this is not an election about individuals. This is an election about people who can get things done and have a proven track record of doing so.
So how do we walk the line between working with businesses and catering only to businesses?
Right.
Well, that's what we've been seeing historically in Cleveland. We cater to the businesses and we leave out the residents.
Well, this I think is a problem. If you sit down with businesses, you have to know what to ask for. You have two kinds of leaders. You have some leaders who are just happy to be there. You have others that really want to get something done. And I'd like to think of myself as a person who simply wants to get something done. That's not to slight or talk about other people. It's about exposure and experience. Understand how the world works. And based on having a world view, you can move and build a better tomorrow around the idea of those exposures.
Okay, so one of the biggest issues that have come out is There's three things. There's voting rights, the thing that happened in Georgia. There is the police brutality, and pretty much what happened to George Floyd and so many others, Tamir Rice. We can just name hashtags pretty much. How would you, let's talk about police brutality. How would you stop unarmed help if you are elected, or when you are elected? How would you stop unarmed African American people from getting murdered by the police?
Well, I think first of all police are not bad, but there are some very bad apples in the bunch, and we need to recognize that. First of all, we systematically have got to take responsibility for the people we're hiring. The individuals that we're hiring are going through a process where they are not properly vetting those individuals. It makes no sense to have an individual who comes in and then is engaged in a behavioral act that is not acceptable to our community, and then we look back and we try to blame everybody in a bunch of apples. We've got to blame the people who are hiring these individuals, who are approving these individuals, for not having systems that are properly vetting those individuals there. They're employees. And if you hire someone that is not performing correctly, that has not had the exposures and the background and the track record of treating the public as their employers, then I have a problem with that. And the individuals who have processes in place for in their employment offices, that we've seen instances where people's records have so clearly been out of step with the expectations and values of people who are interested in individuals who are performing under the color of law, to recognize their absolute responsibility to perform, recognize, and obey the spirit of the law or the rule of law. And so until you have a system that is in place that recognizes that, that's extremely important. Another thing is that we've got to build better relations in our community. We had about 100,000 folks that were hired for community policing back in the 90s. We no longer have comprehensive policing programs for whatever reason. So we need to make sure that we have individuals that Officer Jones or Officer Timpson is patrolling the community, and the people who live there, that have been there, have a history there, have a relationship with them. So when they call and they need some assistance for the individuals who are there to work for them and to provide protection to them, it's extremely important to have those relationships, because we too have a responsibility for what goes on in our community. I remember when I was a kid, my father had a block watch program, and he had little red signs that would go in the window. Everybody there was looking out for the community. But one of the things that we did that actually was my responsibility, and that was to have street parties where people on the street know each other. You come together not just when there's a problem, but you come together to sit down and talk about issues when it's not a problem, over Miss McIntosh's apple pie, or a great hot dog, or a good piece of barbecue, or a great piece of fried chicken. You need to have people that are coming together, or it could be a pizza pie. It could be a lot of things. But if you come and you talk and you develop relationships and trust, then human behavior tends to be more geared towards a positive outcome than a negative outcome, and that is very much what we experience. And all of us who have been in leadership have a responsibility to make sure that we develop systems that are out there, to give a young person that summer job, to find a way of getting them in the door, to find a way of creating how we can create these dirty, nasty lots that are out there, to find a way to report activities that are undesirable to the citizens who are scared to come out of their house, who are not protected, and they know they don't have the relationship with the individuals who are supposed to be representing them under the color of law, but don't recognize their responsibility based on the rule of law. And that is what we have to go back to, and we can't do that if we have leadership that does not follow the rule of law themselves, that does not have a moral conscience, a moral compass that is focused on creating within our systems the kind of discipline that is important for building a better tomorrow and a safer community and neighborhood for people.
Okay, so now that you said that, let's go to you said about social distancing in the pandemic. There's been a big health disparity before the pandemic hit our communities between the poor communities, the African American community, and other communities. How do you bring that together while you're in Washington?
Well, we have to develop systems. My first priority is the 11th Congressional District of Ohio, and take what I learned from here and go to Washington and make sure that people just don't hear what I have to say, but would include it in the discussion. In public policy, in so many instances, you have individuals who simply go up and think that hollering is going to get something done. The loudest mouth in the room is not always the mouth that's heard. And so we want to make sure that we develop a capacity among the rich, diverse tapestry of Northeast Ohio to have education programs that are going to reach out. But I understand the distrust that individuals, not only in the African American community, but across the board have. There's too much history of where we have not done enough to protect them as citizens, to make sure that the rule of law is followed as it applies to the kind of experimentation that many individuals within our community understand. But in this pandemic, I think that it's extremely important to understand this fact, and that is the millions of people who have died as a result of the pandemic is small in terms of the individuals who have been affected by the vaccine, in the context of understanding where we are in terms of technology. Just 5 to 6 years ago, we had a situation where it would take a lot longer for them to come up with a vaccine. Our science, our technology, and the exposures that we've had have resulted in a shorter period of time where many more lives have been saved as a result of these vaccines. Now, I mean, there are some out there I'm not going to suggest people go with, and I think that even Dr. Fauci has indicated directly and indirectly about some of his preferences, and I think that we have to follow the science and recognize individuals like him who have been under the firing line and tried to do that. But we also need to look in our own communities, build relationships with individuals who are physicians. We need to make sure that there are certain amounts of funding that is available to support those individuals so that we can do a public education campaign. We need to include individuals within the clergy and also our leaders to come together, stand together, and work to give people confidence in a system that many people don't trust. And I think that you're going to see a lot more of that happening. I certainly on Capitol Hill will be pushing and working with those different departments to make sure that Northeast Ohio gets its fair share of opportunities for funding, for exposure to other studies, to make sure that we are gathering the analytics that is necessary to continuously give people confidence about health choices.
Right. So
Yes. Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Lazada.
You talk about the relationships. Once you get to Washington, one of the ways that the black community, both locally and nationally, is improved is the work that's done by the Congressional Black Caucus, coming together, kind of sticking together and working on their bills toward the same end. Do you see yourself working along with them, or do you see yourself branching out into other avenues?
I think it's a little bit of both. First of all, I think that we have to compare what our needs are in the 11th Congressional District, and then look at how we work with the Congressional Black Caucus to make sure that those kinds of exposures and the vast power that that organization has are utilized. And we have seen actually in this election how important the African American vote was in electing President Joe Biden. And I think that initially the president is moving and making many of the right decisions that are going to contribute significantly to changing the lives in our community. We need a break. We need an opportunity. I can't stand coming in here telling you that we're the most impoverished city in America when the political power of this nation that led not only to I remember talking to Congressman Stokes. He said, I served for 15 consecutive terms for 30 years. When I left here, I was still the only African American in the state of Ohio. We now have 2. But when he left office, there was only 1. And because of his leadership as a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, it gave many of us a lot of confidence in working systematically to make sure that we have the kind of exposures to get us access to processes through the president, through the Senate, through the Congress, and through the vast bureaucracy of the federal government. And so we have to continue down that line. But I'm a results-oriented individual. I do not like a lot of talk. I like to go to work and get things done. And so I welcome the opportunity to join that distinguished group and make sure that the interests of the African American community and other people who are affected by different systematic biases will have access and in a condensed way to ensure that we stand and we move forward under one voice.
Okay.
All right. So when you are elected, what does the first 30 days of your office look like? Which issue would you tackle first?
Well, immediately what we have to do is we have to develop a team to begin to look at the different areas that we're in. I think a good guide for doing that is to look at some of the aspects that happened under President Johnson with the Kerner Commission report, which incidentally outlines most, if not all, the issues that our community and the African American community is challenged with, that has a residual impact on all communities. And so what's good for the African American community is good for all communities. And people need to understand that. We have a political system that is based on one person, one vote, and anything that happens that has an impact, if there are vacant houses, if there are certain exposures in terms of crime, if there are other issues in our community in terms of health disparities, if the lead issue, the quality of water issue that we have, that is vast. It has an impact on every community that has spent an average of well over $100,000 for many of the houses that are in the surrounding suburban communities here. And so they too have an interest in recognizing that what's good for the inner city and the individuals who live there is good for all the region and the state of Ohio and the nation as a whole.
Okay. So after you left the office of state senator, what have you been doing, and how would you use the same tools you were as state senator to be successful if and when you are elected to this seat?
Well, after I left, I passed my very last bill was House Bill 336. I think we had a discussion. I think I was in fact on your show.
Yeah. What was that?
Ohio,
what was that House Bill 336 again?
House Bill 336 was a temporary amnesty program that was passed almost unanimously by both the House and Senate and signed into law by Governor John Kasich, that created a temporary amnesty program for individuals who owe fees. And that bill was developed in part from something that my father told me about individuals that worked with him that didn't have a driver's license. And they explained to me why they didn't have a driver's license. Then I began to receive calls from various individuals. So our office did a research, and what we determined is that in the state of Ohio, there were over 1 million people who had suspensions on the book for a host of different reasons. And that was contributing significantly to why they would lose the opportunity for employment and also. So I developed and started researching and drafted a bill. And I asked, in order to make it a bipartisan bill, invited my friend Dave Greenspan to work with me on House Bill 336. Mm-hmm. We got it through, it's passed, it was signed into law. Well, for the first 6 months of the year, I believe from February, a lot of people, including our clerk at Cleveland, Earl Turner, who testified on the bill, a lot of leadership from now appeals court judge Emanuela Groves.
Yes.
Who was a great leader in helping the municipal court and the judges there to reach out. Judge Michael Nelson contributed significantly also, and there were a lot of others here in the city of Cleveland. But across the state, we developed a campaign to help individuals, and so I certainly participated in that during that 6-month period. Since that time, the bill has been reintroduced and made permanent law. It was reintroduced the lead of Dave Greenspan and the young lady who took my place, Representative Brent. The two of them carried the bill. I was there on the first day of testimony to add support. And now that is in law, and there is a methodology there where a lot of that is going to happen automatically. And so we think that that is very important. I understand there are well over 78 or 100,000, between 78 and 100,000 people that have been affected. There are 8 million drivers, 1 million drivers that had suspended driver's license, and it changes every day through the court system. So there needed to be a methodology that was doing that, and I'm very proud of that. The other thing that we worked on was the mugshot bill. Mm-hmm. There were individuals who were arrested, never tried, never convicted, but their mugshot was requested pursuant to Section 14943B of the Ohio Revised Code. And these internet companies would take those photographs and they would put them out on the internet based on how that individual or why that individual was arrested, never tried, never convicted. And so it deprived them when they went out and they, one person asked and provided substantiation to an internet company that they were never convicted, and they asked that it be removed. And there were companies out there who were asking people for $1,200 who were already unemployed to pay that and take it off. And then what they would do is switch it to another company that they own, and the cycle would continue to go around.
That would be if people don't know about that, that would be the slammer magazines where they would put people who have been, who not convicted, but were arrested. They put their mugshot on in a magazine and send it out to convenience stores and things of that nature.
Yes.
The thing about it is that unfortunately, and I'm going to tell on myself, I was years ago, just got caught up in something stupid. And I was unfortunately a victim of that. So yeah, it's not fun when somebody from the corner store that, you shop there all the time comes to you and says, hey, I seen you on this magazine and, you're affected with, other things. It didn't ruin anything. It was just be aware that, people are thirsty and like they'll make a buck off your face. And I'm just being honest, it was not fun. And somebody actually, when I called them to have them removed, somebody did try to charge me. They wanted 15 G's to remove my picture.
Oh my goodness.
That's extortion.
That was extortion.
I'm sure you were employed, but there are a lot of people out there.
I'm not giving nobody 15. Listen, I wasn't giving nobody 15 grand a month. That was pre-son. So that was pre my son. So that was like over 10, 11 years ago that happened. So yeah, I'm not giving nobody 15 grand a month hard on me and I had to pay rent. Nah, right? Show damn mind. Nah. You can put, yeah, thank you, human T-Rex, thank you. But I understand where you're coming from. So back to what you were saying, Mr. Barnes.
So Larry, I look at those issues as what I metaphorically call low-hanging fruit in criminal justice reform. And so what so often happens, rightfully so, is that we articulate positions to cover the issues that are affecting people in a mean-spirited, vast way, to the extent of having situations where people come together and they rally around it. I think that it's equally as important to make sure that we have initiatives that are looking at what can be done that is going to deal with those low-hanging fruits. And that was two areas that I focused on because a lot of work was being done. When you look at issues like collateral sanctions, which help people who have felonies and that sort of thing. These are minor misdemeanors, but the impact on the community, if you have 1 million people, 1/8 across the state of Ohio, who can't, you think they stop driving?
No.
In most instances,
Hell
they
no.
don't.
They keep driving.
They keep driving and then they hit me and then they say, oh, I'll pay you, I promise.
And I have no insurance.
Right.
Right? So what happens is that the residual damage on the community is vast because then your insurance goes up because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so it has an impact across the state of Ohio. So that is some of the work that I have been engaged in that I think is very, very important for the community, and the results, the statistics about what's happening there. What I often do, once I do one bill, outside of my office, I had a long chalkboard with every initiative that we were working on so that we were reminded daily about what we had to get done. This is a business. This is a serious business. This is not no fashion show. This is not a situation where we're looking to see this, that, or the other. This is a business that affects the lives of people seriously. And so we wanted to make sure that the staff in our office were reminded daily that we move it. We move the ball down the field just a little bit today, and we keep moving until we get to our goal.
Right.
And that's what I believe is important for leadership. I mean, marching is one thing, protesting is one thing, but I fought hard to get to the table of public policy with ideas that was important towards changing in a bipartisan way. And that's the way I will walk in the halls of Congress. You know, I may take me an orange soda or something with me just to walk down there and have something cold to drink.
Okay.
Right, exactly. Don't say orange. It reminds me of somebody that I don't like at all. But just kidding.
Okay.
Not really.
Well, let's say an orange crush or Dr. Pepper or
Right.
something like that.
Dr. Pepper,
yeah. Right.
Disclaimer, bum bum.
Right. So you got to pay us for that, Dr. Pepper. But speaking of these things that are, you said, protests and things of that nature, we seen this past weekend Stephen Swain Jr., who was killed by the police he was a basketball athlete at Shaw High School. There was a protest for that. There's been protests for other people. As far as how do we, the thing about it is, I want to prevent this stuff from happening. So you have to be at the table to write legislation to prevent this. How will you, if you are elected to this seat, write legislation to make sure that this stuff does not happen, or does not happen, because it may or may not, but does not happen often, or never again? I'm hoping for never again, but that's me.
Well, you know, there are some laws. I don't like stand your ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's bad public policy. And I think that while that is law now, we have to continue to educate, in particular, our young men to understand and employ strategies and discipline that is important towards saving their lives. And so those marches have or contribute significantly to reminding people who do public policy that you have a responsibility to make sure that our communities are safe, and that the individuals who you have, again, we go back to employment, that you employ and make these engage in these terrible, despicable acts, have to recognize who they work for and what their responsibility is. And so our leaders have a responsibility. Our office would be engaged in ensuring that we have that. I think that the George Floyd Reform Act that has passed the House and is currently over in the Senate need to move forward, and we need to make sure. What we have to do also is we have to be unrelenting and working towards getting passage of that legislation. But if we have to make some adjustments so that we can get the necessary votes, we need to work hard to get it passed as it is first. But if we have to change votes, because at the end of the day, the legislative process is not whether or not you protest. It's based on votes.
Right.
And we have to do whatever is necessary to ensure that we secure the votes. I think it's too early to look at that at this particular point in time. But as a strategy, as a legislative strategy, you know, if you do your homework, where you're going to have a problem with someone who is not always going to vote in the way that might be of interest to your constituents, but based on where they are. And so that is a reality of our political system. I'm not saying that it's right, it's wrong, because our collective responsibility in the legislative process is to ensure the safety of all American citizens, and that's why that process is there. But politics being as it may, and politics that is played, we need to move and get done what we can and then come back and keep fighting.
Right.
Because some of those reforms that include, but is not limited to, the issue of having a national database for the behavior, what contribute to this generation moving forward and understanding the generation of leadership that has to make those employment decisions about individuals who are coming in. We have the people out here whose records are so bad, you wonder, in the public is a hiring process. And who we hire has as much to do as who we direct. And when they're out on the streets, they are essentially representatives of the city and the people in these chartered communities. And so it's extremely important that. And so I would work towards building the kind of relationships and convening people in a way where the citizen's voice is heard.
Right.
And we move forward. And so in that respect, what we do on the streets is very, very important towards sending our leaders a message about what we think, believe, and expect to be their responsibility to get things done for us, to ensure that when we're in our cities, when we're in our streets, that we're not muffled by public policy that is not taking in consideration our rights and our relationships.
Right. I got a couple of people on Facebook. Shout out to Jerry Prim, Natalie Fitton, and Miss and IL Bridges. And IL Bridges asked this question. John, thanks for your prior service. It's clear that you are the legislation and the professional experience well beyond some others in this race. Could you answer what type of initiatives that you would sponsor which would bring funding to the 11th district, run and remain in the race? So answer that question. What type of funding would you bring to the 11th district?
It's twofold. Number one, that is the purpose of setting up a structural intervention so that we pull the experts together in the community that will have an ongoing process. Innovation and ideas don't have to always come from one source. We have to open up. One of the things that we're not doing well is to listen to people. I don't know how many times constituents call me and say, John Barnes, this, that, or the other, right? I get it, fine, I'm working on it, okay? We have to make sure that our constituent services are at a level where individuals who are trying to give you information, your office will look at as predictive analytics in the context of information that can be used to move us forward. That today is an area of technology that is so important, and our community lacks that. And so we would want to look at how we could develop a public-private partnership for gathering information so that when you go in and you complain about a process,
right,
you will have something to back you up because it has happened over a period of time. We also need to look at our housing policy, to look at what can be done for our young people who, some of whom are graduating, but graduating with no skills. The statistics have not changed with the individuals who are going to college. We still have about 3 out of 10 students who matriculate at colleges and universities, and about 1.5 that actually graduates. I want to make sure that regardless of whether or not you go to college, that you have some useful skills, and we need to look at the natural resources of our community as other parts of the world have done. Great examples of this is in Singapore, where they flip their economy around as and is a very productive. In the communities that we live in, where our communities have been hit, the economies are down, we have to set up systems. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's a young man that makes a product. I'm not going to tell you he makes my favorite coconut donut, right?
Oh.
All right? Okay. My favorite coconut donut. So when I discovered that he was making donuts, I stopped in and I naturally was drawn to that coconut donut. And I started talking to him because I noticed that if I would stop there in the morning, he had it. And in the evening, he didn't have it. So I walked in, I said, well, man, why is it every time I come in the afternoon, which was not much because most of the time I was in Columbus, right?
Right.
Oh, you don't have my coconut donut. So I started asking some questions. I said, can you tell me how many donuts you get out of a bag of flour? And he looked at me and said, should I know that? I knew it was a deeper problem than I had. And so I started, and right then, I said, grab me a piece of paper. I said, let's list out all the donuts you have in your cabinet. He said, okay. And I said, for every sale, you train your folks to mark down and calculate how many you selling and put the time up there. So at the end of the week, you can study why you don't have my coconut donut. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He started doing it, and it changed his whole process, his structure of how he was doing his business. That is an example of how we promote economic growth in our community, to make sure that we have supportive institutions that can provide. I mean, we have a lot of support going on. The only problem is it's not good enough. And as long as it's not good enough, that means we need to move to the next level by looking at the 500 plus $1 million that has $500 million. I can say that with confidence. $500 million plus confidence coming in here to use some of that money to make sure that somebody like me didn't have to walk in that donut shop, but we would have people on a full-time basis that would be able to walk in there. You know what? If he did it right, he not only could produce there, but the influences of our government and access to opportunity in the private sector could give him an opening where he could begin to have a contract that's going to help him get to the next level. It is those kinds of systems that would look at the top 25 industries to see where somebody needs a new employee and what we're doing in relationship to our schools to make sure that those individuals are trained. I mean, this is not rocket science, man. But you got to think and you got to understand that this is a business. And it's a business of people and you learning to do everything that you can to make sure that you move them forward. I'm absolutely committed to do that. And I hope my example answers their questions. You can call me or you can check out votebarnes.com or call on our website. You can look there and get the information, and we will get back to you and answer any further questions that you have with more detail.
All right, so let's get down to brass tacks here. How can people volunteer for your campaign, work on your campaign, and how can people donate to your campaign so you can pay us to advertise your campaign on this station since it's black-owned black media? I'm just being, we straightforward here, John, so we ain't playing.
Well, we always been straightforward,
right.
And I respect you for asking that question. That's fantastic. What I will say also is that we have to make sure that we don't allow dark money outsiders to come in and take the 11th Congressional District that Congressman Stokes filed a lawsuit to establish. We have to make sure that the dignity and the integrity of who represent us is not obligated by outside dark money that's coming in here for a purpose that is not focused on the 11th Congressional District of Ohio. And if we do it right, you will make sure that the programming that I have in mind will move us to a level that I think everyone will begin to see and have a reason to believe that they have a stake in the future. And the answer is votebarnes.com. Vote Barnes. Put on a mask. Vote Barnes. And you also ask about voting rights. This is what I want to say to you. there's so much negative press about voter suppression.
Uh-huh. Like in
As there
Georgia.
should be.
Yeah, Georgia. Ohio might have the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
as it should be. And, I have helped with Black Vote Matters in Northeast Ohio during the last election. But this is what people need to understand. We have got to educate, particularly in a system where political strategies elected the first African-American mayor of a major American city, Carl Stokes, to make sure that the people in our community are educated about that process. So when we hear on the news, or people who have in their daily lives don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on, will not be discouraged by this constant bombardment of reporting about voter intimidation, about this, that, or the other. We've got to tell our people how to vote, bring you some water, bring you a snack, bring you a stew. And we have that here. And you got to do it and make sure that we participate and look at early voting, to make sure that we look at absentee voting, to make sure that if we stand in line on election day, that we're not discouraged and we allow ourselves enough time to have a snack and some water and a chair so that we can go in there and make sure that we do our due diligence. But it's also extremely important for our leaders to deliver for the people that we constantly bombard to get something done. And we've got to make sure that we get individuals who are going to get something done and change the paradigm of always crying about this and always crying about that, our leaders. But then when they have the power, they must deliver. So we're going to see what happens with all of the resources that are coming in as a result of the pandemic. I mean, it's an awful lot of people out there who are receiving an awful lot of money. I'm telling you, don't take no vacation. Use it as payroll. Invest it in something that is going to sustain your family, because it will end at a point in time. And like my friend at the donut shop, we want to make sure that someone like that would have an opportunity to invest in new machinery that will move them to the next level. And so all of this is very, very important towards giving people a reason to believe.
all right.
That's what it's about.
All right. Thank you very much. John Barnes, you said votebarnes.com? That's right.
Mask up, vote for Barnes. Mask up, vote for Barnes.
And how can people can volunteer and go on?
You can volunteer. You can make a contribution. You can call us and say, I'm going to have 10 people over the house. I want you to come on. Or I'm going to have a Zoom call. We're going to all of those. We want to make sure that we continue to set the tone for social distancing, because we're not out of this pandemic yet. And we have to make sure that the discipline that has been induced as a result of public policy continues to protect the lives of people. I'm about the business of saving people's lives and moving forward.
All right. Thank you very much. John Barnes.
Is that it?
That's all.
That's all?
That's it.
Oh, come on now. This was part one.
Right.
Right?
This is part one. So the thing about it is like, John, there's some chicken in there. Speaking of which, we feed you as always. So go ahead and get you some chicken.
It's a good time to have some chicken.
Right, red beans.
Hot sauce out there?
Yeah, and red beans and rice as well. So we'll make sure you get some, and then when we come back, we're going to talk to Dennis Cash. Shout out to everybody that was on here. Al Bridges, Stacy Yanata, Lois Trice, Al Porter Jr., Jerry Prim, Natalie Fitton, Mary Trevisano, and Donald Green on my live and watching the headline eye. This is Drake. I got my eye on you. We'll be right back with more of the headline eye with myself and Ms. Lazala Perry. Thank you Congressman candidate for District 11, John Bars, and we'll be right there, right back. Peace.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much,
I'm
John.
going to duck out. I have to be on the west side.
Okay.
So thank you so
Food
much.
is straight back.
I actually don't have time.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Let me grab me a wing. Hold on.
Grab
Go ahead. You gotta grab something.
grab something.
You want to take the fruit
And a
basket
ginger
with you?
ale. And a
Incidentally,
ginger ale.
That was very important about your dad and my birthday.
Oh,
Please give my regards.
sure.
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
see you guys.
Take care.
What were you talking about sponsorship? Tell me about that.
Sponsoring the show. That's something that comes like, get your commercial on here and things of that nature.
Advertising
Let's
radio.
Yeah, advertise through this station.
let's have a discussion about that because I think I'm interested in doing something like that. So I'll call. Who you want to call?
I'll give you Johnny O's number, or and then we'll.
Can you let me 216
So we're on
Hold
break.
on 1 second.
We're waiting until our next
216
segment with Dennis
650
Cash.
6683.
658.
No, 6683.
Oh, 6683.
Yeah, and if not,
Oh
just
my gosh.
on boltbarnes.com, and they can just
Today
send that,
was out.
and my folks will.
Alive.
Thank you guys. See you now.
Take care.
Okay.
All right.